Alrighty, and welcome back to episode 5 of Brothers
Brothers Duo.
Duo.
Never
How
gets
you been
old.
doing, Al?
Good, good. Good to be
That's good.
back.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so big episode 5 here. Basically, I guess the topic or topics today we wanted to talk about was to return back to collecting focus. And that in and of itself is such a big topic, such an important topic for really anybody in the hobby. Um, and that specifically, I wanted to talk about a couple things involving collecting focus because really we had an episode on this before. I believe it was our very first Brothers Duo episode. We talked about collecting focus. And, today I kind of want to talk about a couple things about collecting, collecting versus curation. Are we accumulation versus curation? Where does that balance land for us? How do we want to shape our collection into the greatest, trimming of the bonsai tree that we would like it to become? And also, if we want to create some kind of a change in our collecting focus, how do we go about doing that in a way that is responsible, in a way that is, I don't know, maybe congruent with other aspects of our collecting, in a responsible way, in a controlled way, that because there's so many cool things out there. There's so many awesome things that you can't target it all. You can't,
Right.
whether it's just players or sets or eras or whatever it is. It helps to have a defined focus of what are you trying to do here, what are you accomplishing. And so yeah, that's sort of what I wanted to at least have our discussion about today, and also talk about just our recent our since the national. I know we had a great time at the national,
Yep.
walking the show floor together, which was fantastic. It was awesome. And it was so fun being able to be with you as you're picking up these Griffey refractors and SP buyback autos, and
Oh,
it's just really
yeah.
cool to be right there and watch that negotiation happen live.
It was. It was. This is our first episode since the big show,
That's right.
and it was so much more, I guess, fulfilling for me to be able to walk around that show with you this year for the first time, and to have you there. I know you didn't find much in your wheelhouse at the show, not surprising, but I was really impressed with your discipline. I was really impressed with the fact that you actually did more selling than buying, and you came away. You're probably one of the few people in history that's ever gone to the national and left with more money than you came with. I mean, not being a dealer anyway, but like it's very rare.
Well, thank you. I had a very targeted sort of focus. Speaking about focus, I had my goal sort of in mind, but I also had my expectations. I feel like kind of low. I really didn't expect to
Yeah.
see much there. I was tempted by a few things. Look, I saw what was it, a '99 Fleer. It was a Shining Stars Pulsar Maddox.
Yeah,
It was a beautiful
I remember
card.
that.
Yeah, and the price was a little higher than I wanted, but the condition also, it was ungraded, and I saw there was a little ding in the corner, and I just wasn't really. I
Yeah.
wasn't completely happy with the price. I wasn't completely happy with the condition, and so I walked away from it.
And it really wasn't one of those cards that you were highly targeting either.
No, it wasn't. It was not on my list.
Yeah.
I have a list. It was not on the list. It's a
Yeah.
really cool card. I like it. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. But at the end of the day, it wasn't. It wasn't a must-have. It wasn't. I wouldn't prioritize it above some of the bigger ones I was keying in on and
Which
focusing
you
on.
have since picked up. So
Which I
because you were disciplined at the national, you were able to in turn pick up the cards you truly wanted after the national because you didn't blow your wad at the national, and that's
That's true.
impressive. That's exactly why it's important to be focused. It
Right.
is
Right.
knowing what your standards are and staying true to them, staying true to the main focus of your collection, so that you're not shooting yourself in the foot by buying something that you might only kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
in favor of waiting, being patient, and then later down the line seeing what you truly wanted and having the money left to buy it.
And it's tricky too, because I realized some of the items I had on my priority list are they're not small insignificant items. These are big. These are heavy hitters for me, at least. And to be able to, I had some money saved up already, but part of why I think I brought the cards I did to try and move and sell. Yeah, some of them were doubles, but a lot of them weren't, but they were cards. I've decided that, speaking about focus, one of the ways that I've sort of thought about changing my focus, or just tweaking it a little bit, is in asking myself the question: is this a kind of card that would be easy to acquire again sometime down the line?
Yep.
A lot of the more iconic cards, the base rookie cards, even in like a PSA 9. Like, for instance, I just yesterday, or the other day, I sold an 86 Donruss the Rookies Barry Bonds rookie card that I had. I
Yeah.
actually have two of them. I have a really nice raw copy, a lovely card, but I also had a PSA 9, and I felt like I don't really need both of them.
Right.
I'm very happy with the raw card. The PSA 9 can get me at least, a decent return on that. So I sold it, and I feel like I'm starting to shift a bit more from just the pure iconic, just the iconic status cards, to the rarer stuff that you just don't see every day. And so that I want to have some cash on hand. I don't have, unlimited hobby funds here, and none of us do really.
Nope.
But I want to put what value I have in cards, use my cards to be able to acquire the more rare, scarce ones when they do come up available for auction or for purchase. And that's sort of what I was trying to do, like at the National. Like you mentioned, I brought cards. I sold over $1,000 worth of stuff at the National, and not all of it. Some of it was like doubles. I might have had some doubles here and there. When it came to some of the Matic stuff, some of them I had a raw one, maybe had a graded copy, and so sure, maybe it just moved along one of them and held on to one. But not everything I moved along was a duplicate. There was like, for example, I sold a Derek Jeter autograph. It was one of the signature rookies. It was the mail-in promo one. It was not the one. But again, like when I look into reacquiring one, I feel kind of bad now that I don't have a Jeter autograph anymore in my collection. But the signature rookies is numbered to like 8,750. Like there's no shortage of finding one down the line.
It's the condition scarcity with that one, I think.
Yeah. Well, the one I had was a PSA 9 Auto 10, so it was still a Pop 35, one higher, I think is what it was. So it brought some good, I was able to get a good sale for that. And like you mentioned, I was able to put that then towards some of the Grail cards that I did pick up recently since the National, and so I'm super pumped about that.
Yeah, what you're describing there is curation. So we were talking about accumulation versus curation.
Right.
Curation, I think, implies that there's a two-way street. There are things coming in, and then there are things going out, and you're prioritizing, and there's a hierarchy, and you're constantly molding, shaping, and curating that collection, meaning there are things going out too. There are things coming in and going out, and it's not just an accumulation, a hoarding situation where there's only a one-way street of things coming in and coming in and coming in. You're thoughtfully curating when you're moving things like that along, in prioritizing other items that take priority.
Yeah, and it's an important thing. I don't want to be a hoarder. I don't want my collection to just be ever expanding. The blob. That takes over everything. I don't want it to take over a room or a house or anything. I want to be able to have it mean something, have it be special.
One thing I like, one saying I like is quality gets lost in quantity.
Interesting.
So if you have too much, you can't even enjoy it. You can't enjoy it all because you don't know where anything is. And the quality stuff gets lost in the quantity. So that's a saying that I like to use. That way I don't just stay true to myself and my collecting. And I don't want a large collection. I want a small collection, but a small collection of meaningful items that really matter to me, so that the quality doesn't get lost in the quantity.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I've got my one case of slabs, and right now I actually have two very small sort of spillover ones that I'm sort of collecting here, and then I've got a top loader binder, and that's basically my entire collection.
That's where the quality is. Yeah.
Yeah. I at some time down the line, I may get one more. I may get two full-sized sort of slab cases, and I don't really see it growing beyond that.
Okay. So this gets at one of the questions I wanted to pose was how far along the process do you feel like you are? Like, what percentage complete is your collection? I think it's a really interesting question to think about. I think all collectors should give some thought to questions like that. Like, where are you going, and how far along are you at this moment in terms of size, how big you want your collection to be, footprint-wise, and maybe monetary value-wise too. Like, how much more money do you see putting into your collection versus the amount that's in there now?
Interesting. Really good question. I'm going to think about that. I think, well, and I'm glad you said both for absolute size
Mm-hmm.
and for value, because
there's two separate things there. You know,
very, very different. I mean, I think no matter what it is, if you're player collecting, if you're set collecting, if you're, I feel like in general, when you start a new branch of your bonsai tree of collecting,
mm-hmm.
the pickups at the beginning are frequent and they're smaller.
Yeah.
And I feel like the more that you start to fill in, it's the bigger pieces that start being fewer and further between, but they're more expensive
And harder to find. So you have
harder to find also. Yes. So as far as, I mean, for my Greg Maddox PC, well, I've got a couple PCs. I got my Diamond King autograph PC and I've got my Greg Maddox PC. Those are my two sort of primary that I'm focusing on. And so when it comes to the Greg Maddox PC, I feel like how finished as a percentage, I want to say I'm probably 75, 80%. I mean,
Cool.
I feel like I've got most of the foundation of what I would like to have,
mm-hmm.
I have size-wise.
Yeah.
The pieces that I have left to obtain that I would like to obtain are generally going to be the pricier ones.
Yeah.
And so, somewhere down the line, next on my list, since I've picked up some of those Grail cards, and it's funny, I still don't even have them in hand. They're actually still in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Which
like
is okay. It's going to be like Christmas morning, and when it's going to be glorious, it's floored and just flooded with all this amazingness. But I would like to get the 97 Donruss Preferred Precious Metals.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not precious metal gems. This is just metals. This is the one that has 1 gram of platinum like within the card, and it's
mm-hmm.
amazing card. They made them for 97 and 98. I prefer the design of the 97. Okay. In general, within my Maddox collection, I like to sort of a sub PC within the PC. I am going for iconic firsts.
Mm-hmm.
If there was the first year that something came out, whether it's the first year of refractors for 93 Finest, whether it's the first year of whatever, I like to have that. And it's one reason why I really do like the fact that I have that actually you gifted me 95 Select Certified Mirror Gold.
The first Mirror Gold, yeah.
The first Mirror Gold, which means I get to not worry so much about the 96 mirrors, which are insanely expensive.
Yep.
Now would I like to have them eventually? Maybe. They're kind of nice, but they're also way, way, way out there. Mm-hmm. But it's also one of the reasons why one of my big targets was, and one of the ones that I just sort of acquired recently was this guy, the first ever Essential Essentials.
Mm-hmm.
So I just picked up this one.
Big boy.
Big boy card for me. So pumped that I was able to get that. But
and your embossed refractor too, right?
Well, yeah, I was about to say, yeah, and the embossed refractor. Yeah,
those were two Grail cards for you that I think because you were patient. Yeah, because you were patient at the National, you were able to eventually get those.
Yeah. And it's true. Had I been spending, had I not been careful, had I not sold what I sold,
mm-hmm.
Those cards would not have been a reality. It wouldn't have happened. I didn't expect to see those at the National, and I didn't. Mm-hmm. But I really, really didn't expect to see both of them within the span of a week. That was absurd. Just to see them both pop up organically on Facebook, of all places, which is funny. I had dabbled. I had dipped my toe into that sort of area in that foray, but I'd never really engaged much with that specific wing of the community.
Mm-hmm.
But because we knew Bill, the Hall of Fame collector, he saw him at the National, had a conversation with him. He knew I was looking for him, thanks to the VR for Return to Collecting,
mm-hmm.
there. And one thing led to another, and the most amazing hobby magic community,
Yeah, this
Love
is why
it.
the community is so great, because you put yourself out there, you put what you're looking for out there. People know what your PC is and what you're after, and then it just spiders out into the world, and you never know who's watching. You never know who. Okay, I know. Oh yeah, this guy is looking for this card, and then someone reached out, or someone tried to find you, and they found you. That's awesome.
They did. They were like, "Hey, is there a guy High Pop out here looking for this card?" It's like,
Yeah.
yes, I am here. I am here. And it's funny because now I kind of feel like Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride, where he spends 20 years trying to seek revenge, and after he's got the revenge, well, now
No.
what? So now that I picked these up, now what? Now what do I do? What's my focus on my collecting going to be? Moving forward from here. And so,
well, that's where player collecting gets a little dangerous, because it is a bit of a rabbit hole. That's why I don't player collect, is because there's always a next card. There's always, like, unless if you were going to try to be a completist player collector like Dad, if you're trying to do something similar with Maddox, it's like you're never going to do it. Like, no one.
all the one of ones. I mean, it's an impossibility. You're never going to get there. There's never a finish line.
Yeah, which is why it's really important to me that there is a finish line, that there is a finite goal here. Like, okay, I want these sets represented, I want these players represented, and once I'm good for a player, then I highlight the name on my list, and so I have a list of all 100 players.
Hold on, let me solo you for a second here.
Yeah, so here's my top 100 list, and if the player is highlighted, then I'm good. Like, I feel pretty good with where that player, like, I've completed that player. And so there's only 17 names that aren't highlighted. So just numbers wise, that means that 83 players are complete for me, and I have 17 to go to finish. I need one piece for like 17 more players.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I will consider my collection complete. And so it's 17 more items I need to add for my collection. Now, among those 17 items is a Babe Ruth autograph,
right? Kid Nichols, yeah,
Lou Gehrig autograph. So some of those 17, a lot of those 17 items are high value pieces that might take me a whole year or 2 or 3 to acquire, or longer.
Right.
But that does mean that I have 350 items in my collection that I track, like core items. I just pulled up my spreadsheet like a minute ago.
Yeah.
And I have about 350 items in my collection that are significant enough that I list them out on the spreadsheet and track them. And so you add 17 more items to that, then theoretically my collection will be complete at 367 items. Wow. So like, that's going to be my core collection.
So you're looking at like 95% completion. I mean, you're almost there.
In terms of volume. Yes.
Yeah. In terms of volume. I was going to say, I hadn't talked about price yet for mine. If I was 25.80 and you're sitting there at 90.95, I think as far as value, I had to think about this. It's going to be substantially lower, because the fewer cards I'm going to be picking up on average are going to be, some of the bigger ones. Let's be honest. That's just what they're gonna be. Not all of them, but a good chunk of them will be. Mm-hmm. So maybe as far as value, maybe I'm only at about 50 or 60% or something, maybe even 30. I don't know.
Somewhere in the depends on the scope. Like, if you at some point feel like you then need to get to those 96 mirror golds and things like that, like, are they on your list? Will they be? Like, that's where it gets dangerous.
I will say, I was gonna say, like, right now, the precious metal gems, for example, it's like I can live without, like, if I have the iconic first, right? If I have my 97 essential credentials, I feel like I don't really need all the other ones, right? I'm okay with it, and I'm fine with it. I got the first. So, but I feel like
you're gonna need that 97 PMG then, right?
Well, 98, yeah. Well, and that's the thing, and the thing is too, like 98, and at least for 99, Maddox is also one of those subsets as well. There's more than one, but the one with the trees in the forest is the 98 with the circular design.
Yeah. He doesn't have a 97?
He doesn't. I don't think baseball had 97. I think baseball just had 98 and 99. Football had 97 with the greens and the reds. Again, I'm not a football guy, but I know of them. Pretty sure for baseball and the PMGs, it was just 98 and 99. were the main ones. 99 were the gold colored ones with the rivet behind the names in the background. And
Yeah.
then which looked like a gold refractor, the gorgeous cards.
Mhm.
And the 98s had the circular sort of
Yeah.
refract, the overlapping circles.
Yeah. So I guess I didn't realize that there were no 97 PMGs for baseball.
For baseball, they're not, I don't think. But for basketball and for football, there are, which
Okay.
makes it weird. Anyway, so yeah, so the iconic first for baseball would be that 98 design. Now that's a $4,000 or $5,000 card.
Yeah.
And so that probably just isn't going to happen. Just reality. I'm not sure, and if I were to spend something of that, it would take a long time to save up for something like that. But also, I love Donruss Crusades. I absolutely love those cards. And so the purple and the red are somewhere eventually. I would like to see those in my collection. And those are going to be massive, massive cards. And so if those two cards were added to my, I mean, if I'm looking to still obtain them, then the value I have would be closer to like the 30 or 40%, because it wouldn't be mostly there if those are going to come in. But
and that's where I think balance is important, knowing like how, like the calibration, the weighting of your collection. I have items like that too, where I've ruled them out because either they're impossibilities, like a Josh Gibson autograph, or a shoeless Joe Jackson autograph, which really they don't hardly even exist. Even like a Christy Mathewson autograph at this point, it's like, sure, they exist, but to obtain a nice Christy Mathewson autograph, you're talking like 15, 20K. And that, so even if I could obtain it and like I found one, I would probably sell it because it would carry too much proportionate value for me to feel comfortable with like that much of my collection value being tied up in a Christy Mathewson autograph. I would rather sell the Christy Mathewson autograph and get a Ruth and a Gehrig.
And this is the same conversation that we had about like if you were all of a sudden gifted a 52 Topps mantle.
Exactly. I would sell it right away because I could distribute that money across all the things that I actually want and need for my collection.
You could pick up an amazing Babe Ruth auto and a Gehrig auto like that, even with the people one. Right.
So I don't want my collection to be out of balance that way. So I've, prioritized items that are potentially realistic for me, and still grail items for sure. And they may take me years and years to acquire, but I have items like that too, where for you it might be a, PMG Maddox or some pie in the sky card. But even if you had it, you might not feel good owning it because it would carry so much value that you're like, you know what, I could sell this and check off so many more boxes,
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It's on my radar, but nobody nobody knows what the market's going to do in the future.
Yeah.
Right now they're at these lofty levels where they're basically like out of reach. They've already moved.
And they could correct at some point.
And and so I'm gonna just keep an eye out, and if at some point the market does have another shift or it has like you said, a correction or something, and it becomes, I'm not sure if it ever will, but if it does, I might be waiting and ready to make a move when that happens. I don't know.
I think there's more likely that the air comes out of the high-end 90s insert market than the air would come out of like the Christy Mathewson autograph market. I think the
good point.
Good point. The available or who's holding those items. Probably not a rush of people selling a Mathewson autograph. Versus people that loaded up on PMGs and loaded up on credentials and other rubies and rave, super raves. There might be a lot of people sitting on a whole case of those type of cards that all of a sudden need some liquidity, And so I think you're more likely to see those cards correct a little bit than, pre-war autographs.
That's a fair point. It's a very fair point. Anyway, but I think it's a fascinating question. I'm so glad you posed that about how finished is our collection. Because at some point when you pose that, like what percentage done are we in collecting? My first instinct is to sort of be like, well, it's sort of infinite to some point. Like I sort of view myself as like, if you're a collector, a lot of times you're kind of a lifetime collector. You're always going to be winnowing and trimming and adding and selling and getting,
trimming is different than like when you're in an expansion phase. Like if you're still trying to add mass, I feel Like
Right.
I've added most of my mass. You know, I have
Mhm.
95% done in terms of adding size to my collection,
Right.
and so 95% size wise, I'm done, and probably 75 to 80% done value wise.
Mhm.
So that's the way I view my collecting is like once that's more or less complete, then I'm really am just trimming around the edges, and I'll probably do that the rest of my life. You know, I'll be one of those, you know, upgrade here, upgrade there, sell this one, buy this one, you know, around the edges here and there. And also, I follow the current game, and if at some point Juan Soto is somebody that breaks onto my top 100 list, and I feel like I need to add a Juan Soto. I already have a couple Juan Soto pieces, but you know, I'm constantly watching the current players, and that will keep things interesting because there will be a constant flow of players like Bryce Harper that will eventually be in the top 100. And so, as I'm watching the current game, we're watching those players filter up into the list, and then guys will inevitably, you know, be kicked off the list here and there. Won't be a lot, but I might have to say goodbye to Tom Glavine, and I might have to say goodbye to Willie Stargell. I'll keep Willie
Mhm.
Stargell, obviously, because he
Yeah.
falls into another arena of my collection, Pirates Hall of Famers. But, you know, it's a constant process. You know, this
Mhm.
whole top 100 list is a living, breathing, ever-changing, evolving thing. As Shohei Ohtani wins his third MVP award.
Yeah, as
And
he becomes 50-50 and gets the MVP.
yeah,
So how many rankings is he going to move up after this performance this year?
I'm thinking he's probably going to land in the 80s somewhere after this season. He was at 97 at the beginning of the year, but you know he's basically broken the game this year.
Yeah.
First 50-50 player in history, probably, when it's all said and done. So he'll probably march up into the 80s or the 70s at this point, based on the WAR that he's accumulated already. Like he's getting close to Sandy Koufax's WAR already.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah.
What would you say to the critics who say that a DH shouldn't really be considered for MVP?
Well, he's a little different than any other DH we've ever seen before. So that's what I would say to that.
Agreed.
He's,
Agreed.
he's doing a little bit more than Edgar Martinez ever did. You know, Edgar was a great hitter, one of the better contact hitters we've ever seen in baseball. David Ortiz was a phenomenal power hitter, and Frank Thomas was just a great complete hitter. Those were probably the three best DHs in baseball history until Ohtani came along. And so we've never seen anybody, let alone a DH, go 50-50. And we also know that Ohtani will pitch next year and maybe be a Cy Young contender next year. And although he's not contributed on that side of the game this year, I mean, what more can you do as a DH? You can't do any more than what he's done. So
Right.
he's impacted the game enough to compile 7 WAR already. My guess is he ends up closer to 8 WAR by the time the season's over. And an 8 WAR DH, I mean, that's insane because
Yeah.
he's not contributing any D WAR. He's not contributing any pitching WAR. So just literally what he's done at the plate and on the base paths is a 7 to 8 WAR player, and that's just insane.
Something else occurred to me with the whole two-way players. My mind is I'm still trying to wrap my mind around just the concept of a two-way player, and some of the other considerations that you have to throw in there, especially one who's at the very top of the game,
Yeah,
and leading the league in
both.
I know in both. And so the idea of a triple crown, could we have a quadruple, a quintuple crown?
I
If
guess
you're
so.
leading in
Yeah.
ERA, if you're leading in RBIs, leading in batting, I mean, just
It's
could
never been a
that be a
conversation.
thing?
It's never been a conversation you could ever have until
It's
Ohtani came along. Like
completely mind
what?
blowing that you could lead the league in home runs and also ERA and also wins and also, I mean,
Yeah,
it's ridiculous that you could conceivably.
yeah. It's possible. You know, you could have a guy win 15 games with a sub 3 ERA and 180, 200 strikeouts, and then also go 40-40. It's like like what the hell?
I mean, are these guys going to win? What he's going to be a what 14 WAR year if
I
he's
mean,
going to. He
it's
picks up that
possible.
many WAR as a
It's very
pitcher. He
possible.
picks up
Yes,
6 or 7 WAR as a pitcher. Picks up 6 or 7 as a hitter.
it's possible. That's the scary thing. Like we could see him be a 15 more guy in one season.
That's incredible.
I mean, that's a good career for most guys. 15 more.
Right. That's mind blowing.
Anyway, got off track.
A little bit. With keep our focus on the collecting focus. Yeah. All right. So I wanted to talk about something else too. So when it comes time to maybe change our focus a little bit, if you wanted to add a branch onto our bonsai tree, how does one go about doing that responsibly, or
That's how it has to be done, responsibly and with a great deal of thought. Because is it worth taking your eye off the ball? Is it worth diverting your focus away from what you initially love and intend to collect? Is it worth doing that? And it better be. If you intend to grow a new branch on your bonsai tree, it better be something you really love that also is somewhat maybe congruent with the other things you collect. And is it worth taking your focus off of the main goal in order to grow that other branch?
Yeah,
Like
and it's
with
not just
my 90s finest refractor project, I
right.
decided that I wanted to grow that other branch because I have so much nostalgia around the 90s and those premium sets of the 90s and the innovation era, that I wanted it representative from all these various sets in the 90s, and also to be congruent with my top 100 list and my main focus. Cool, I'll add a Derek Jeter refractor in 98. I'll add a Tony Gwynn refractor in 94. I'll add a Barry Bonds refractor in 95, and that way I can stay somewhat true to my collecting mission without getting too far off track, and then also having a nice nostalgic representative for all these sets that I remember fondly from my childhood. And so that's kind of what I did with the refractor project.
Yeah, I was watching your video. I loved it, by the way. It was fantastic. And
Oh, thank you.
If you haven't checked out Iconic Al's 90s Refractor and Innovation Era project, go check that out because it's incredible. But I like how it felt to me, you've been so focused on your countdown, the top 100,
Yeah.
and then to see this amazing branch emerge from that bonsai tree that just hit me right there in the feels. But then I realized, but as I was watching it, that really this wasn't really a brand new branch at all, because every one of these guys was on your 100 list. I mean, most of them were top 50 or 60. And you were also doing an amazing representative job about, not loading up all in one set, but you had 95 finest represented, 94 Bowman's best refractor represented. You had, all these different variety of years and sets. And so that sort of fits right in with the type collecting that you like to do.
Yeah, it really is the same way that I collect vintage. For example, I want all the top sets represented. I want 55 tops, and so I have 55 tops Jackie Robinson and a Warren Spahn. And I want 56 tops represented, so I have 56 tops Sandy Koufax. And I want 57 tops, so I have a representative for every year of tops and Bowman, and try to do something similar with pre-war. So I'm not overlapping. I'm not loading up on any one set. I want many sets, if not every set that I love, represented. Throughout the history of baseball cards, really. I mean, that's really my style, is more of a type collecting style with a top 100 focus. And I did the same thing with my 90s project, is, all these 90s sets that I love, I want all those represented within that top 100 structure that I have already built for myself. Yeah. And so it's no different than how I collect vintage, is how I approach that 90s project.
Yeah. You have your exemplar for this set is representative. It's like, I have, for 93 SP Platinum Power, here's the Griffey, for a 94, right, exactly. For 94 SP, here's the Alex Rodriguez rookie card. Iconic.
Yep. Yeah. For T206, I have, Cy Young. For T207, Walter Johnson. For T205, Christy Mathewson. So you have a key player in every set that matters to you. And then you move on to the next set. And so you don't overload yourself on any one. You don't get too heavy on one side of your bonsai. It's more balanced.
Yeah. And I guess that's sort of what you're saying about, if you were to obtain a gargantuan card that would sort of seem out of place, something like a Cracker Jack, I don't know, Joe Jackson. Right, Joe Jackson, yeah.
I mean, it's an awesome card. I freaking love that card, but it would be a $50,000 card, and it would represent like an outsized portion of my collection value, and so my bonsai tree would tip over. It would be too much. It's too much card for me. I would sell that $50,000 Joe Jackson card and then finish up what I'm trying to do. I get all the autographs I still needed. I still need 7 more autographs for my collection. 7. So, and like 10 other more cards. So I could finish my collection if I sold that Joe Jackson card. If I, inherited some Joe Jackson card, I could sell that card and finish my collection. Literally finish it. Have my bonsai tree grown and kind of be done. Wow. Done as it can be as a collector.
Yeah, I was going to say. So with the percentages, are you ever going to achieve truly 100%, or are you going to just hover around like 98?
Well, I think by definition, if you look at the top 100 list, the top 100 list is never finished, because there's always the next guy coming onto the list. So yeah, it probably hovers at 99% at some point. If I'm being honest, it's never going to be finished unless they stop playing the sport of baseball.
Right.
And there aren't new players coming in every year and moving up lists every year and compiling more WAR every year. Then by definition, the top 100 list will march on and evolve over time. And so will my collection along with that list.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
It is.
That's so cool. So I guess I should ask you. So are there any other branches of your bonsai that you're considering either growing or starting out or shifting or changing in any sort of substantial way? And I'll just go out there and share too that since picking up some of these big cards for me, that I'm just they were Grail cards, massive cards. I decided to venture into something a little bit new, and it's not like a completely different branch, but I guess it's a different avenue in the hobby. I decided to dabble a little bit into TTMs.
Cool.
And so, yeah, I just decided, look, I had a couple of, and what sort of started this out for me is that, one of my other PCs is, Diamond King autographs and signed Diamond King cards. And, there were a couple players that I really did want to have, but they weren't coming up on eBay very often, and I just really wanted to have them. So guys like Larry Walker, for example, Mike Messina, exactly, and some of these guys that apparently do respond well with TTMs, and so yeah, I did a little bit of research and signed up for the thing online and got some addresses and put together some self-addressed stamped envelopes and got a few cards acquired, put them into some card savers, wrote some handwritten notes and put them in there and said, hey, this is going to be a fun way to engage and try this out, with the hobby. And yeah, so I just sent them off, toward the end of August. And so we'll see about that. In fact, I did actually receive one just the other day. I got one back and just super pumped about it. But yeah, Mike Messina, is a really, really quick turnaround, and just pumped that I got it back already. And so I'm just super pleased that that all the effort is bearing some fruit. And now I've got an awesome Mike Messina 94 Diamond Kings. I'm going to find a picture of it over here. But yeah, I do have somewhere a picture of one. Here it is. Yeah. So I got this. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and here we are. Got this.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Beautiful 94 Diamond Kings.
And it's kind of a niche card, it's kind of you're not going to find too easily a signed Messina Diamond King. Yeah.
Well, not too easily. Right. And this is funny. This 91 score, I happen to have this rookie card on hand too. So I sent that as well. And he's not an expensive autograph. I think he charges like $10.
Oh, that's great.
So I sent $20 and these two cards, and boom, look at them with the Hall of Fame inscription on there. Fantastic. In fact, this was a card. I actually bought the entire 91 score factory set. So I got this card out of a factory set. It's a fresh card. It might be like a PSA 10 for all I know. I don't know. It's a really, really clean card. But now it's got this gorgeous auto on there, and so I'm super happy about that.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, we'll have to see. It was really easy, and so I'm trying to dabble a little bit. It may not be a shift like of collecting focus because it's still autographed rookie cards and Diamond Kings of the 90s, 80s, 90s guys that I like.
It's still staying pretty much in your wheelhouse of 90s guys, Diamond Kings, and signed rookie cards. Yeah, I mean it's not a huge departure.
Avenue, right? And so I was just curious if you had anything that you were considering, branching into or a different avenue or anything like that. I didn't know if
No. I mean, I'm pretty resolute on what I collect, and this 90s thing was something I felt like I really wanted to do. And the other branch of my collection that I'm still working on also is my Pirates Hall of Famers. And so there's only 2 more cards that I need for that. But they're just really obscure, or just harder to find, and they're a bit expensive. The Cracker Jack Max Carey is still the one that I'm after for the Cracker Jack set, and that kind of fills the Cracker Jack box, and it also checks off a Pirate Hall of Famer that I don't have a playing days card of, Max Carey. The last ad that I had was a really nice Bill Mazeroski.
Ooh.
This is a Hires root
Hold
beer.
on, let me get you.
Yeah, it's a Hires root beer Mazeroski without the tab. He's also came with the tab, but this is the without the tab variety.
Mm.
But it's really a cool card. It's got that Knothole Gang look to it, and it's pretty scarce. So the PSA has only graded 27 of them.
Whoa.
And this one's a top 8 with I think 12 higher, something like that. So it's not one that pops up too often. And it's a second year Mazeroski, so it's an early career Mazeroski, and just a beautiful card. One that I was actually looking for at the National, didn't see one at the entire show.
Huh.
And I saw other Hires root beer cards, but I didn't see the Mazeroski. But I found that on eBay a couple weeks ago, and was very happy to add it. So that's kind of checks my Hires root beer and Mazeroski box there. A meaningful Mazeroski card from his early playing days, and a Hires root beer, which I was really happy to add one of those. But yeah, so I'm just looking for a Max Carey Crackerjack and an Archie Vaughn from the 36 Worldwide Gum set. Once I get those two cards, then I'll kind of have my Pirates Hall of Fame collection complete. Then I'll have pretty much a nice card of every Pirates Hall of Famer, kind of career Hall of Famer, and that's exciting.
Yeah,
and I'll probably make a video at some point just showcasing my Pirates Hall of Fame collection.
Now, is that the kind of thing where if you found a Hires Mazeroski with the tab, is that something you would ever consider like upgrading at some point?
No, I actually like it better without the tab, just because it's more uniform. It fits in a standard slab, and so I like that better. I can kind of keep it in my binder and flip through, and it's more uniform that way. And there's actually fewer graded without the tab. There's about twice as many graded with the tab. So, and it's just like an awkward slab size. It makes it a huge slab, and I'm just not a big fan of oversized stuff. I just like everything to be more uniform if possible.
Yeah.
And so that was one of my qualifications with that card, is I wanted it without the tab because I wanted it to be that uniform standard size.
Interesting. It's fascinating to me that like with the tab, you could take a card with the tab, you could theoretically tear it off and make it without the tab. It's kind of like, and it's interesting that you said that the populations were actually higher, you said, with the tab?
Twice as high. Yeah, there's about 50 some graded with the tab and only 20 some graded without the tab.
Curiously, that's almost the same case with a lot of these 90s refractors with the peel versus not the peel. Yep. Like it would make sense to me that if you're going to grade something, peel that sucker to give yourself a pristine, scratch-free surface.
Oh, I agree.
But for whatever reason, the pop reports, they keep track of the pops with peel and without peel, and it seems it's almost the same thing. Most of them are.
One thing you noticed with my 90s refractor project, I have no refractors with the peel, none. Everything I have is without the peel.
Get that glorious shine in there.
Yep, the full shine and no words across spaces. I mean, it's just
right.
Not how it was intended to be presented. The peel set. Remove.
You're just following the instructions of what the dang card tells you to do when you pull the thing. And I mentioned that too. I made a video about the peel versus not peel. I mean, look, there's pros and cons to both. There are advantages and disadvantages, but if you're going to have the thing slabbed up, it's going to be protected. I mean, so
in a perfect world, you get one with the peel and you're the one to peel it, and that way you're unveiling a pristine surface, and then your chances with grading are much higher of getting a nice high surface grade.
I've done it so many times. So many of mine that I have slabbed up, I was the peeler, and in fact, I've peeled in the last couple of years. I peeled a bunch of them.
Yeah,
but yes, I was the one to do it. So
it's such a satisfying feeling.
It is. It's fascinating too, because some of the peels will peel right off really easily, like the Pinnacle Certifieds from '97. Yep. Those peels right off. Oh yeah, they come right off. But then some of the finest from like '97, you've got to really work at those things. They're stuck on there, and I wonder if you don't peel them, like, are they going to be harder and harder as you go? If you didn't remove them within the year they were intended to.
20 years from now, are they now fused to the surface? Like,
I don't know. These are questions. It's a valid, But yeah, I noticed that. I was going to mention that in your refractor video, I was glad to see all the glorious shine showing the Clemens and Bonds from '95 finest. And those ones really, really pop.
No peels. Yep.
Yeah. No peels.
But no, I don't. To answer your question, no, I don't foresee any new branches growing on the bonsai tree. I'm very like, that's the thing. If I did, then it would take my focus away from adding my Walter Johnson autograph that I'm going to have to get.
Yeah.
From adding those more meaningful pieces. I don't want to go off and be buying, Abraham Lincoln cards that I don't care as much about. Like it's cool. Like I've always looked at non-sports stuff and said, "Oh, that's interesting. That's cool," but it's not as interesting to me as, getting that Grover Alexander autograph. Like I would never throw money into a, Thomas Edison card. As cool as I think it is, like I
Right.
would love to see one and hold it and turn it over and look at it at a show or something. But in terms of putting resources into it, no, I want to keep my mission how it always has been, since I started collecting, really. And, my 30-year mission has been what it is now, really.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that would be my takeaway as well. It's like if you're going to add a new branch, or you're going to change or alter the collecting focus, it needs to be done very carefully, very intentionally. There's got to be intentionality in there. And there was a word that you used about setting yourself up with guardrails
Mm-hmm.
um, to have it well defined
Yeah.
from the outset. That I think is a really good guideline for
And
anyone
it's okay
looking
for
for.
you to change focus, like especially if you're a newer collector, you don't know what's out there. You don't know what players you're going to focus on. You don't know what sets are out there. You don't. But once you do kind of have your mission defined, and you do know what's out there more or less. Like I'm still learning new sets here and there, but once you have been in the hobby for a length of time, I think then you're less apt to grow new branches than when you're younger in the hobby, like newer to the hobby. Then yeah, you're going to be sprouting branches more often and flushing those out and exploring those things, or maybe diverting your main mission to something else when you find out about new avenues. But where I am, I don't feel like I'm probably going to change my mission or want anything else diverting from my mission either.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
Just
sense.
where I am. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And I think that when you look at our dad's collecting, I've been really impressed with how he shifted focus. And right now, from his Barry Bonds PC, now that he's been sort of selling off some big parts of it, he's not stopping collecting altogether. He shifted his focus just into the promo cards,
Yeah.
and just into the error cards, right? And so really niche area where he may not have a lot of competition there, but he can still have a blast, with new pickups, with new error cards that they
He
use.
sees the scarcity there. He sees how rare some of these executive promos are, and like XXX out of XXX, like these, what? Like, where did that come from? Or it just says like sample across the front or whatever it is. Like, yeah, those things are every bit as rare as any PMG, And so, yeah, he's kind of said to himself, I'm going to kind of move along some of this more valuable stuff that I've collected over the years and made a killing on probably since he got this stuff, and then just focus on these things that really make me happy, really things that really I enjoy but maybe aren't appreciated by the mainstream hobby, that may not appreciate those executive promos and those samples and those more obscure things that he does appreciate because he knows how rare they are. He knows how scarce these things are, these unnumbered Donruss signature autographs. Like, what? Like, where did that come from? Like, out the back door? But yeah, he has pages and pages and pages of these. Like, what? Like every one of these cards, whether it's an error, something that got misprinted, or has the wrong back, or has a blank back, or so this is what he's finding joy in right now, and that's great. He still has that pivot to something that he's still finding joy in.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really glad I think it's a really great example of how to change that focus well, how to do it in a healthy way, how to do it. And I think that's just a great example to have. Even for an advanced collector, there are ways of doing it well, and that was done again with intentionality and carefully considered, not rushing it.
He knows like where he is. Like he knows he's in a downsizing phase, and he's executed that beautifully. Like he knows he's built tons of value in his collection, and he's been able to successfully extract that value like really well. So he knows exactly where he is in the hobby, and he knows exactly what he's doing. And it's a shining example for both of us, I think, in our collecting, seeing that how he's operated in retirement. Like he's done it beautifully.
Yeah, and I guess the focus. It's interesting how the different life cycles of a collection.
Hmm.
The growing pains that they go through. They change, they shift, they evolve, and these cards that we collect. These are things that we can't take them with us.
Right.
After this life. And if there's not someone in our immediate family who's going to carry on the baton necessarily, or is going to keep collecting this exact same PC.
Hmm.
Who knows the market for your collection better than you?
Yeah.
You're the
That
one who collected it,
no
and
one's gonna appreciate your collection better than you. It's true.
that's it. That's it. And so, yeah, I think exactly right. It's a heck of an example for us to be able to look at, and it's one of those things. I like that percentage. How finished is your collection?
I think
But
it's
also,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, but to keep in mind where is this going? What's that collection going to look like in 20 years?
Yep. What are you building toward ultimately?
Right.
And and then what's the end game
Yeah.
at the end of the day? Like, so I feel like being as completed as my collection is now, maybe by the time I'm 45, maybe I might be getting close to completion.
Hmm.
Like fast forward 3, 4, 5 years from now,
Sure.
I could be at that place where I feel like I'm just now trimming around the edges at this point, and then I could have like 20 years to really just enjoy my collection, just enjoy what I have, and continue to share things, and have hobby talk and strategy and hobby theory discussions like this. Um, and then when I'm retired someday, when I'm 70 years old, then that might be the time when I start to sort of move those items along to the next steward, the next caretaker, the next curator that's looking to curate their collection. And
Mhm.
if I can help that process with the next generation of collectors, then I move those things along at that point.
Yeah, I like what you just said about the next steward, the next caretaker of these
Yeah,
items,
that's all we
because
are. That's all
yeah,
we are.
well, that's exactly right. And I can say too that the feeling that that an amazing piece is going to be enjoyed and appreciated and loved by another fellow collector, like it's in good hands, it's going to a good home, and
Right.
that's such a satisfying. You're not taking your babies and abandoning them, right?
No.
Um, they're going to a home. That's another thing too, that our dad has established this group, community of fellow serious bonds collectors, and he knows them and knows what they like, knows what they're going for, and I think he feels good knowing that they're going to be appreciated and loved
By
in
other collectors.
their
Yeah.
own collections. Exactly right. Um, and that's a special thing. And I
Definitely.
think that for anyone's end game, I mean, what better end game could you want? I mean, unless it's going to be something like it's going to literally end up in a museum somewhere
Right.
where it will also be showcased and loved by that would be another
Mhm.
good end
Yeah.
game, I think. Um, but yeah, it's fascinating to think about that. Not everyone does think about 20 years, 30 years from now. Where is that card going to end up?
Yeah. For me, it's a win-win-win-win. I get to enjoy this collection for 20, 25 more years.
Right.
Um, Hopefully it appreciates a bit in
Hmm.
those 25 years, and that's just a bonus.
Yeah.
And then you get to move it along to the next generation of collectors. You get to move it along to the next steward, the next curator that's curating a collection, needs an E95 caramel, and looks at your Eddie Collins and says, "Oh man, that's the one." It's well centered, and like they're just as happy to get it, in 25 years from now as I was when I
Hmm.
got it. And yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a cool even to think about that, like what that'll
Right.
look like in 25 years.
And knowing that next generation of collectors, if you've done your job well with collecting and being discerning and picking up the right Eddie Collins,
Yeah.
that the next people looking at that card are going to appreciate that too and realize, oh man,
That's
that's not
special.
just an Eddie Collins from that set. That's the one, right? That's
Yeah.
the one I want. That's the
Yeah.
one that's special, that has the right eye appeal, that has the right centering, the right color, the right everything. The registration's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you had a good eye and
Hmm.
chose well, curated well yourself,
Yeah.
then that will do good things for your collection going forward in the future. Yeah.
Well said.
And that's why focus is important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, certainly. Any final closing thoughts about this or any other topics that we?
I think we, these collecting focus videos, I feel like we could just riff for an hour every week on this. But
Well, I mean, they're evergreen. B, I mean, every collector probably needs to think about some of these things. Like if you don't have a number, right, about how finished is your collection as a percentage as far as the mass and value, and they don't have to be the same. They probably won't be the same. It's something you should probably think about. And same thing with the Endgame. Where do you see this collection going? These are excellent thoughts. And you're right, this is part 2, but honestly, we could have a part 3, 4, 5, 12, 17, whatever.
And any other content creators out there watching this, if you want to raise these questions on your videos, or have hobby discussion videos on these topics, feel free to use this topic in your discussions. Like, it's not just, we're cornering the market, this is our topic. No, like, use this. How complete is your collection? All these topics this is an open forum, and anyone can take these topics and run with them. So by all means, leave a comment below. Tell us, like, mass-wise, how complete is your collection? Also, value-wise, how complete is your collection? And maybe an end game, where do you feel your collection is going to end up eventually? So leave a comment. Like, let us know where your collection stands and where it's headed.
And these questions, not only do they apply to every collector, they apply to every budget too. Yeah. I mean, regardless of how big or small or modest sized your scope might be, or your hobby fund allocation is, these are still worth considering.
Yeah. So what you consider your collection like complete at $1,000, at $10,000, at $100,000, like, just think in terms of percentages. What percentage complete do you feel like your collection is? Yeah.
I like it. All right. Well, thank you for another amazing episode.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. And we'll just sign off for now. And you'll have a really good week.